And welcome to today's webinar. This is a continuing series in our series of TechBytes. And again, we have Patty Dobbins with us today. She is CEO and partner of B&C Technology Services. Patty's organization supplies all sorts of technical advice on IT, software programs, hardware, upgrades, and we do this as a service to our clients and to our growing webinar group because we've gotten a lot of great comments about the educational nature of these TechBytes. So in the past, we've covered Excel topics and Outlook topics, and encourage everyone to continue to give us ideas for the topics you'd like to see. Today, we're going to be doing Excel for financial management. There is a handout that you can download. Control bar, you'll see a handout, TechBytes Excel for financial management. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patty, and we'll get started.
Great, thanks, Bill. Today we're going to take a look at some things that may be helpful as you are working on financial spreadsheets. These are just a small sampling of the tools that are out there in Excel for you. So hopefully we'll have something here that's some value for you today. So first we're going to take a look at COUNTIF. And COUNTIF is going to give you a result based on a certain criterion, typically answering questions. So the first one is going to be how many products will continue to be offered. So in my spreadsheet that I have up here, I've got some sales for Q1 and Q2. And based on these sales, we may decide not to continue offering certain products, or there may be products that are being sunset and they're not going to be available any longer. It's kind of a small spreadsheet, so we're going to be able to see the results as we do it. Makes it a little bit easier as we go through these. So in this case, I'm going to accept that COUNTIF. I'm just going to hit Tab, and then I'm going to select my range. And you can see that it's prompting me underneath for the arguments. So the range that I'm going to choose is this range right here. And then my criteria that I'm going to select is going to be whether it has an X or not in the box. So if there's an X, I want it to count it. And when it's text, we're going to put it in quotes. And I'm just going to put in my ending parenthesis there. And you see I have 12. So I could do that really easily by just selecting this range and then looking down in my notification area. It's going to tell me my count's 12. So I can just kind of spot check it quickly. But again, if we had many, many rows and columns, that becomes a lot more cumbersome there. Okay, so how many AutoCAD products do we have? So we may be looking at this and saying, okay, so I know all of the other things that we have maybe 3,000 products available, but how many of those are specifically AutoCAD products? So again, I can start with my COUNTIF. And in this case, I am going to, again, select the row that I want to look at, and I'm going to just, or the column that I want. So I'm going to select my product names as my range, and comma, and then my criteria this time is going to be anything that starts with AutoCAD. So I'm going to do parentheses, or quotes because it's in text, and I'm going to start typing AutoCAD. And then because I want it not only to equal AutoCAD, but anything that starts with that, I'm going to use a wildcard, and that's going to be the asterisk or star, and that's going to give me all the results. So my end quote, my end parenthesis, and enter. So that lets me know that I have 8 AutoCAD products that are in my list. All right, so how many purchases of AutoCAD products did I have in January? I can use SUMIF because I'm going to be adding up those sales for January. So I'm going to start equals SUMIF, my parentheses, the range that I'm going to select. The range that I'm selecting is going to be A19. And then I'm also going to put in AutoCAD. Again, my star, my closing quotes there. And then I'm also going to select the range that I want to sum. So in this case, I can see that it's going to be January. I'm going to sum this range, and then I'm going to put in my ending parenthesis and hit enter. So in this case, I had sales of AutoCAD products in January, and I can quickly go down through and just highlight that and see what the result is there. So let's take a look at what SUMPRODUCT can do for us. So in the next tab, I'm going to look at SUMPRODUCT. You know, COUNTIF and SUMIF are pretty popular. SUMPRODUCT is one that maybe not quite as familiar. But what it allows us to do is to calculate two tables together. So what it actually does is it takes these amounts here up in the first table, and it's going to multiply those against the second table and then add up all of the entries. So for this function, you need to make sure that you've got both tables need to be the same size, because what you're actually doing in this case is doing 6 times 15, 3 times 16, and so on, and then it's going to add up all those results and give us the total at the end. So for Pronto Pepe's, I have these different locations of where the restaurants are, and then the different entrees that we have available. And up in the top are the sales that we've had at these different locations for Friday evening. So what we want to look at is how do we get the total of how much we made over all of the restaurants. And we're going to use SUMPRODUCT to do that. So we're going to start out with equals and then SUMPRODUCT, and we see it there. Just tab to select that. And then I'm going to select my area, my array, the first one, and that's going to be B3 through F5. And then I'm going to hit comma, and I'm going to select my second array down here. And that's pretty much it. I'm just going to enter my closing parenthesis and hit enter. So now I know that a Friday evening on these 3 dishes, this is what our total was across all of the restaurants. So pretty interesting function. Hopefully you'll find a use for it. I think it's pretty cool. All right, so we're going to move right into lookups. VLOOKUP is probably one of the top most frequently used, well, of course, we know the most frequently used is going to be AutoSum, right? But VLOOKUP is really popular and a really useful tool to look up values. So the VLOOKUP is going to give us a result on a vertical lookup table. So what I'm looking at here are some employees, and they have salaries. And we're going to look up what their tax rate is for their given salary range. The lookup tables that we have, one is a vertical and one's a horizontal, because we're also going to take a look at HLOOKUP and see how that works. Very similar to VLOOKUP, but it's just the way that the lookup table is laid out. So if it's in a horizontal format, then we're going to use HLOOKUP. So here we've got our different ranges, and with this function, you can use either an exact match or you can use an approximate match. And this is one where we're going to use an approximate match because we want to find the range. So it's not going to be exactly 25,000 or exactly 35,000, but it's going to be somewhere in that range. So it's going to be either less than or equal to a specific setting. So it's going to look up through this table and find the appropriate match. So let's get started with entering the formula. So we're going to type equals, and it's going to be VLOOKUP. And I can see it there. Okay, so the lookup value, and by the way, while we're doing this, you can do it this way and it prompts you for the arguments, or you can always use the insert function button. And that will bring up a dialog box that kind of walks you through the function. It's really great to use when you're kind of learning a function for the first time and you need some information about what each of the arguments is for. So that's another way that you can to enter your function arguments as well. So again, just starting back, so we're going to do VLOOKUP. And here my lookup value is going to be the salary, because that's what I want to find. I want to look up this amount in my table. The next section is going to be table array, and in here this is going to be the table that I'm actually looking up my data in. So this is going to be my lookup table. And the next thing that I want is my column index number, and this is the column in the array that I specified that I want to return the value for. So here I want to return this value of what the interest rate is, and that's going to be column 2. So we'll go ahead and put that. And the last thing that you can put in is whether it's going to be true, which means it's going to be an approximate match, or whether it's going to be false and be an exact match. So in this case, you can see that we're going to do the approximate, and it's also telling us that it's got to be sorted in ascending order. And the reason for that is because it's going to start at the beginning, and it's going to go down through each one of these cells down through the list in order and find the one that matches. It's going to find the first one that matches. So if it's not in order, that's not going to work very well. So we're going to go ahead, do true, and I can type in true, or I can type in the number, and I'm just going to hit enter there, and it's going to give me that 6%. So if I look down through to find 72, I know it's going to be either equal to or less than. So it's going to put me in that range of 65 to 75, which is going to be 6%. So very easily now I can copy this down. But if I do that, well, let's just do it for a second. So if I copy this down, you'll see that I have a lot of boo-boos here. So what I want to do is go back. I'm going to look at my formula and say, oh, you know what? The array has to be an absolute. So it can't be relative, because it's going to keep moving down as I go down through my list of formulas here. As I go down through this column, this is going to move unless I make it absolute. And the way to do that is to select that, that argument. I'm going to select my table array and hit F4. That's going to put in the $ for me that's going to make it stay on that. The other way that I could do that would be to put in the named range. So I could actually select this, give it a name, call it tax rate, and then use that in my formula. So let's just copy this down again now that I have it fixed, and there are my tax rates. So again, the HLOOKUP works in the same way. So we're going to just start typing that in. HLOOKUP. My lookup value is going to be C2. That's going to be my salary. My table array is going to be this section right here. And now I'm going to, while I'm doing this at the moment, just select that and hit F4 just to make it absolute. Now it's looking, instead of for my column index, it's looking for the row index. So which is the row that I want to return? And it's going to be row 2. And then again, my range lookup is going to be, an approximate match. So I'm going to go ahead and click in true, or I could type true, and then I'm going to hit enter. And again, so this should match the same as what the other one was because it's exactly the same table. The only difference here is that I haven't formatted it as a %, which I can do right now, and then you'll see that those actually match. So those are the two VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. Pretty cool. I use this all the time. Really super helpful. All right, so let's move on to another type of lookup that we can use, and this is the match function. And what match is going to do for us is actually give us a match. Who would have thought it, right? But really what it's going to do is give us the location of the match if it matches. So in this example, we have a list of Social Security numbers over here, and we're looking at this specific Social Security number, and we want to see if it's in this list. So maybe we're looking up a particular employee, and we just want to make sure that they were included in the data, and we're just going to validate that they are in the list by using match. So over here, I'm going to start in typing my formula. So match there. Now it's going to ask me for my lookup value, which is going to be the value that I want to look up in the table, and that's going to be my Social Security number. And then it's going to say, okay, where do you want to look this up? What's the lookup array? And I could go down and select all of these, but it does go down quite a ways as we look down. Well, maybe not as far as I thought, but let's say it went down, 5,000 rows, right? So the easiest way to do it from here would be to click on column A, and it's going to ignore the A1, the text that's in there, and it's just going to start looking down through the numbers. So I'm going to select that column, and that's going to be my lookup array. And then I'm going to, the last argument is my match type. So do I want it to be less than an exact match, or do I want it to be greater than? And in this case, I want to exactly match it to a Social Security number. This isn't a case where I would be okay with it, being an approximate match. I want it to be exact. So I'm going to just double-click on exact and finish up. And now what it's actually telling me is, because it's returned a location, I know that it's found that match. And if I go down and look at 14 down through here, I'm going to see that it is actually in there. And there it is. So match is kind of neat, but a lot of times you end up using match with other functions that you have. So like in this case, if I had a whole list of these that I wanted to double check and make sure that we're in the list, if I had one that wasn't, I could, let's just change this value. So there's my error. If it doesn't find it, it's going to return NA. But let's say that I was going to use this in part of a report, and I didn't want it to just show NA. I wanted it to show something more meaningful to someone who is not familiar with my data. So in here I could use another function. So let's say if it's an error, I want it to show something different. So I'm just going to kind of wrap this, I'm going to nest this inside of if error. And you can see when I hit tab, it starts putting that in. And now at the end of that, for the second part of that, I'm going to say, you know what, if this is not found, here's what I want it to display. Not found. And now I'm going to finish that up. So in this case, I'm saying it's not found. If I did another one, let me just drag that down. Just change this back to what it was originally. Copy this down. And you can see that I'm either going to get not found if it's an error, or if it finds the value, it's going to place it there if it finds a match. So you can see that it's really helpful when you use it with other functions. And we're going to take a look at more of that in just a minute. So let's take a look at another one. This one is called index. And index and match get used frequently together. So we're going to take a look at index first, and then we'll go back and put them together and see what we find. All right, so here we're looking at some rates, and these are different shipping rates that we have. And what we're trying to find out is what is the total shipping cost that we paid. Let's say this is yesterday's items that we shipped out, and we want to find out what our total shipping cost was for the day. So this is going to be based on the weight of the package and also the shipping zone that it's in. And you could do this with lookups by combining different lookups. We could get the answer. But there's another way that's probably a little easier, and that's going to be with using index. What index is going to do is it's going to pull info out of a table based on the column and the row reference. And that's what I'm looking at over here. I'm looking, here's my row, and here's my column reference. And it's going to actually go down and find that in my table and give me the result of that. So let's go ahead and do the function. So it's going to be index. And first I'm going to put in my array, and that's going to be this area over here. And so I'm going to start with C4, come down, and that's going to be my array. And again, I know I've got to make that absolute. So just select it, hit F4. And now the next thing I'm going to put in is my row number, which is going to be the weight. So I'm going to hit 2 there. And then the next one is going to be my column number, which is going to be 4. And now I'm going to close up that function, hit enter. And so here is my 2109. So let's make sure that works. I'm going to come over to column or row 2 and zone 4. So I'm going to go out here, and there it is, 2109. Now I'm going to continue to copy this down, and it's going to change all of those references relative except for my array, and I get the total. All right. So let's take a look at match and index together and see what this can do for us. So here we've got some different sales for January on different products, January through December for the year. And we have some different products up here. Can't tell that it's a little centric to my world, right? Desktops and laptops. So we're going to take a look at how do we determine something like how many laptops did we sell for April. Now again, this is a pretty simple case where we could actually eyeball it and figure it out. But let's say it was a really big table again, and so we needed to use some type of a function to be able to get that for us in a little more efficient manner. So in here I'm going to start with the match function, because what I want to find is the location of month. So I want to find out where is that in the list. So I'm going to start out with match. Oh, not math, match. All right. So my lookup value, the thing that I'm looking for, is going to be April. And where am I going to look for that? Okay, that's going to be here, in this area. And what is the match type going to be? Well, it's going to be exact, because I want to find that exact month. And so it's going to tell me it's 4 down in this list. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's April. Great. Now I'm going to go ahead and do one more. This time I'm going to find the item that I'm looking for. And again, I'm going to now, this time I'm going to look in my type of items that I have. And it's also going to be an exact match. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So now it's telling me my product location is 2, which is correct. So there we are. So for the last part now, I want to find the sale. So what I'm looking for is I've actually found my row and my column reference. So now I'm going to use index to find what the match or what the value of these two references is. So I'm going to type in index. And again, for index, you're selecting the array first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I want my row number, which is going to be the month. And then I want my column number, which is going to be the product that I'm looking for. And just close that out and enter. So let's double check it. If I'm looking for the month of April, it's in the 4th one, and I'm looking at laptops, I'm going to be looking for 2874, and that's my answer. The nice thing about it is because I'm using formulas here, if I wanted to say, well, what were the laptop sales for May? I can very quickly find out what that is. If I wanted to find it for July, I could type that in. So very quickly, sort of reminds you a little bit of a pivot table, doesn't it? So very quickly I can find out those different answers if that's something that I would find valuable and need to use. All right, just going to put April back in here. So we've done this as, separate separate formulas, different functions that we've had in here. We actually can combine this whole thing into one if we wanted to. And you can see that actually earlier I had at one point named this range sales, and that's why it's showing up in here as sales. But I can go ahead and just select this whole thing here, and I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it down here. So I'm going to actually start to build this, and what I'm going to do is replace these with the actual formulas that are in those cells. So here, instead of doing C5, I don't want to have to worry about changing this every time or about building this or having it visible. Maybe I just want to see that one. And there may be a case when you would want either one or the other. You might want to do it this way, or maybe there's a reason why you want it all in one. So here I'm going to select this part of just not the equal sign, and then I'm going to escape out of that, come back down to my single formula, and instead of doing C5, I'm just going to select that, and I'm going to use Control-V to paste in what I copied, that formula that was in that area. And then I'm going to hit Enter. I'm going to come back down and do the same thing for C6. I'm just going to select everything but the equal sign. I'm going to go ahead and copy it, escape out of that, and then I'm going to select C6 and use Control-V again to paste it in, and now hit Enter. So you can see that you can have it either way, and then as I make changes here, it's going to make changes there as well. So this can be kind of a lot to think through. Sometimes when you just start building them, it's helpful to kind of break it down, and not only with index, but also with other ones that you do as well. Like if you have nested if functions or other nested functions, it's helpful sometimes to put them down first, break them down, and then put the first one together, and then it's not so bad as you start to put that in other locations. So pretty neat thing that you can use. So let's take a look at our goal seek. Goal seek is used to find a solution to a problem using changing just one cell. So over here I've got a couple of different scenarios that we're going to take a look at with goal seek. So the first one is calculating a loan payment. I'm going to take out a loan, want to find out what my payment's going to be. So my principal is going to be $23,000. It's going to be over 5 years or 60 months, and my rate is going to be 2.5%. What is my payment for that going to be? So in here, I'm using the payment function, and hopefully you can see that. It is a little dark on that gray background, but the payment function is going to be the payment, and then it's going to be B4, which is our rate, and I'm going to divide that by 12 if I want monthly payments, or if I wanted quarterly, I'd divide it by 4. And the next piece is going to be the terms that we have, so in months, so this is 60 months. And then the last piece is going to be our principal. And you can see that I have, maybe you can see, that I actually have a negative in front of that, and that's because I want to flip it to positive, because it will show up as a negative number. And I'm just going to pull that out so we can see what that actually would look like. So this would be my payment, but because I want it to show up without that, just to make it a little bit, visually more appealing, I'm going to go ahead and put that in so it flips the sign and makes it positive. So I'm looking at a payment of $408.19. Well, we found that, let's say this is a company car, a very reasonable company car. And so in this case, we're seeing we actually have $600 allocated to this car payment. So what would we, how much could we pay for a car if we had a $600 payment? Or maybe the better way to look at it is how soon could we pay this off, right? So either one of those we can do by using goal seek. So if I go over to the data tab, I'm going to find under here what if analysis. And under what if, I'm going to choose goal seek. It's going to bring up a little box for me. It's going to say, what is the cell that you want to set? And that cell is going to be B7. So this is the cell that I want to set. And I want it to set it to a specific value. That's going to be 600. That's what I want my payment to be. And now I'm going to say, okay, by changing which cell. So in this case, I'm going to select, I'm going to be good, and I'm going to select the term because I want to pay it off sooner. So I'm going to select the term, and I'm going to say, okay, what would that look like? And you can see that it calculates it. Okay, it's going to give us, 39 months or 40 months, right, at 600. And that would be the terms that we could pay. If we wanted to go back to the other one and say, okay, well, how much of a car could we afford with a $600 payment? We could go again to goal seek. We can say we want to change the cell that we want to look at. This time, let's look at B7. We want to make it 600. But this time we're going to change the amount of the principal. So how much can we spend? So we could get a car for $33,800 and make that $600 a month payment for 5 years at that interest rate. So again, you can choose whichever cell you would like to and make those changes. So let's take a look at another case where we might be able to use that goal seek. So over here, I'm looking at what the salary increases are going to be for this year. And looking at the base salary that they have right now, and I'm going to calculate the new salary. And I'm estimating that the range is going to be about 3.4. That's kind of what we thought it would be. And so now we're going to see what that actually looks like. Is it going to be something that is going to make sense with the number of the allocated funds that we have for the salary increase? So I'm going to start in here by just calculating what the new salary would be based on the raise percentage that we have. So this is going to be equal to the salary that we have right now times the rate that we have. So again, I'm going to select that and I'm going to multiply it by our percentage increase. And I know that this is going to stay absolute, so I'm going to go ahead and do F4 right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So what I'm doing is first I'm multiplying the salary times the percentage, and then I'm adding that back in to, give us a reference. Whoops. Okay, so let's see what I did wrong. Yes, let's add it. All right, here we go. So now I'm taking that salary, adding the raise onto it, and so here's my raise. And if I went all the way down through, I could see now my calculation at the bottom is just a little over $2 million. So as I look at what I have available, I have a little bit more available. And what I want to do is figure out what is the percentage going to be that's going to make sense to come closest to this. So this is a great job for my goal seek. I'm going to come into what if analysis, go to goal seek, and I'm going to put in the cell that I want to change. So again, let's see, I want to change the total, and I want to make that the allocated funds amount that I have there, so it's 2032000, and I want to do this by changing the cell of what the percentage is. And I'm going to say OK. So you can see it calculates that. So here's my end, and there's my result. So we could actually give them a 4.23% increase. Pretty cool. I'll take it. So that's goal seek. Another one that we can look at is called solver. And solver is not actually under the what if group. Solver is actually an add-in that you would need to add in. And I have that on the first tab. And this, by the way, the file that you have in your handout is this file right here. So everything that I'm looking at, you'll be able to look at as well. And so you'll see, it's actually not on this page. Let's look at solver. There it is. So this is what I wanted to show you. If you don't have that add-in enabled, you can enable it. And this is the path that you would go through to do that. So we would go to File. Oh, and the way you tell, by the way, is you will see it on the Data tab. But you would go to File, and then you're going to go to Options, Add-ins, and I don't know why, but mine's in French. Okay, yours should be in English, and it should say Solver there. But that's an Excel add-in. You would say Go, and then you would choose this Solver add-in here. And hopefully yours is in English. So that's how I get the solver there for me. And what solver is going to do is allow me to find a solution by changing multiple variables. So a couple of different cells or multiple cells that I can choose. And so it goes a little bit farther than what the goal seek might go. So this may be something that you would use if goal seek's not quite what you're looking for. So I just start my solver, and what I'm looking at over here are a forecast of what the earnings are going to be, or what our revenue is going to be, and what our profit's going to be. So we're looking at Q2, and we're trying to forecast what that might be. And we're looking at some different scenarios that might come into play here about things that may change. So we're looking at something that may vary, and we want to see what those different changes might look like. So in here, one of the things that I want to do is I'm going to set my objective, and then I'm going to do that by changing variables that I specify. So first, what I want to do is really we want to look at changing our gross profit to a larger amount, right? Don't we all? So we're going to look at that gross profit, and we want that, let's say, okay, we're going to be conservative, and let's say we just want it to go to $700,000. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in, and it's going to be a specific value of, you can do max and min as well. But now I'm going to select the cells that maybe I want to change while I'm doing this. So in here, I'm going to select my sales. So maybe I'm going to have an increase in sales. So I can certainly select that, and I'm just going to hit comma. And maybe the next one would be a change that I might find in the cost of my goods that I'm selling. So that could be another one. Now, I can take it just this way, but I also want to add some constraints to this. So I'm going to specify, how far can these two change? So I'm going to go ahead and click Add, and that's going to give me the cell reference. So the first one I'm going to select is my sales amount, and I'm going to say, okay, it can increase, but let's say it's only going to increase to the most that we could probably do would be 150. So it's going to be either less than or equal to 150 for April. And I'm going to say Add. And then the next constraint I'm going to say is this cell for my April cost of goods is going to be, it's going to increase, maybe, but let's say it's only going to go up to 70,000. So here I'm going to put in 70,000, and now I'm going to click OK. And so now it's just going to go back and give me a review of what it is that I'm looking for. So here are my two cells that I'm going to change. Here's the total that I want to get to, and these are the constraints that can only go this high. So I want to take a look at what that's going to look like, and I'm actually going to say solve it. So you can see it's taking a little bit of time there, but oh, it said it couldn't find a solution. And the reason is because it only found very close. So it couldn't come quite up to 7, but for me, that's good enough. I really have it, even though it didn't come up quite up to 700. I can still see what that's going to give me there. So I know if I was at 70, this is how it's going to change. Now let's go back and take a look. I'm going to restore that to my original values. By the way, if it defaults on keep the solver solution, so if you just clicked OK at that point, it would save it with the new solution. You also have the ability to save it as a scenario, which we're going to talk about. Hopefully, if we have time at the end, we'll talk about scenarios. But scenarios are really just, I could do this multiple times, and I could save them as different scenarios and then go back and take a look at them and switch between the different views. So in this case, I'm going to say, okay, restore it to my original values. I'm just going to kind of back out of that and get back to what I was looking at before. So the reason that it was able to make those changes is because of the way this table was set up. So here I'm looking at the values, but the May and June amounts are based off of the April, plus they are calculating a 2% increase for each one. So once I change the April, and that's why we were just selecting the April ones for the sales and for the cost of goods sold, is because changing these, because these are formulas based on that, will change these as well. So that's kind of how Solver works. It's a pretty powerful tool. I think you can change up to like 30 different cells to find solutions. And again, you can save them as scenarios and go back and look at them in different ways. So it's really, really helpful tool when you're trying to kind of forecast or figure things out, how things might change. All right, data table. Data table is pretty cool. I think they're all cool, don't I say that? This is pretty cool. So in the data table, we're going to look at, this is going to be a new building that we're looking for because we have had such remarkable success that we are expanding and we need more room. So now we're going to go out and buy a new building. And we're kind of trying to figure out what is it that we are going to be able to afford or, you know, put us in a good position. We don't want to get overextended. We want to, you know, do something a little more conservative. So what's going to give us what we need, and yet how much can we spend given on a specific interest rate? So we have a bunch of different interest rates here. We know at certain banks maybe we can get one rate versus another. So we want to take a look at what those different variables might be. We're also going to look at different amounts. So maybe there's different buildings that we're looking at, and they range, you know, anywhere from 400,000 to 620, or, you know, whatever our particular range is. This is what we're using for this example. So what we want to do is figure out what's the monthly payment going to be, and that's going to let us know what we're going to be able to do based on the rate, and how much principal are we going to be able to use or to spend. So in here I've got a standard payment function. It's looking at our interest rate, and this is going to be monthly payment because it's divided by 12. Our B2 is going to be our terms, so that's going to be 36 or 360, and our principal amount, we're going to start with 400,000, and so this is going to be my monthly payment. And you really need this calculation. The reason that I have it right here is because I'm going to select a rectangle for my data table, and that needs to include what that formula is that I'm going to use to calculate the rest of the table. All right, so I'm going to start by selecting the data table range that I want to fill. And then I'm going to go under my what if analysis, and I'm going to choose data table. And here I'm going to put in my row input cell, and my row is going to be B3. So that's going to be the row that I'm looking at. My column input cell, so I'm looking across this row. My column input cell is going to be the percentage. So that's going to be B2, and that's going to be these different percent columns down through here. And then I'm going to click OK, and it's not going to give me what I'm looking for. All right, so let me back out of this for a second and see what I did wrong here. So, I see. This is what I did wrong after I just told you, right? Okay, so let's go back up to our data table. And again, I will fill this in. So our row input is going to be our B3, our principal amount. Column input is going to be our interest rate. And let's try it one more time. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so now I can kind of look down through here. I can see what's going to be comfortable for us, what's going to fit for us, or where do we need to be, or maybe I need to shave, see if I can shave a quarter of a point of interest rate off just to get us below that number that we need to be in the range of. So it's one way to just show a whole bunch of different solutions or scenarios for a given problem. So kind of close on time, so I won't go through the scenario part, but suffice to say you can come up to what if, go to Scenario Manager, you can add in scenarios, name it, the cells or cells that you want to change, and then what you want to change those by. If I was going to do an increase, and then I'm going to select the cell that I could change and say OK. I can select multiple cells here, say OK, and it's going to say what do you want to change it to. Let's say it was going to be 20. Now I have this different view. I can continue to add scenarios, and then I click the Show button, and it actually changes the data to show me what that's going to look like. So I can save multiple ones, and then I can go ahead and just change those different views. So that's just a real quick Scenario Manager. And we're out of time for today. Bill, if you want to, if you have any questions that we haven't been able to get to, I can take them right now. Or if nobody has any, you can submit them to me later, or we can also do them offline. But thank you, everyone, so much for coming today, and hope you found something in here that's going to help you out and get your work done a little bit quicker. So thanks. Bill?
Yeah, that was a great presentation. I was taking notes furiously. It was great. As Patty says, if anyone wants to stay on the line, we can answer questions. We're going to let you go, though, because we're a little bit over time. We will be keeping you informed on the next Tech Night, TechBytes, and you'll be receiving Patty's BNC Technology newsletter, and so we hope we keep in touch with you in various ways. Again, thanks very much, and if you'd like to stay on the line and ask a question, please do. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks again. Yep. Bye-bye.